going on, everybody? My name is Trips, and this is another episode of Watchpoint. We are going to be talking about a few things today, like the anniversary update, the end of Season 4, and kind of Overwatch's birthday in general. Just what we expect, what we missed out on, things like that. But before we get into any of the discussions, I do want to welcome back Yiska.
Hey.
So what have you been up to? What's your Overwatch, I guess, gameplay and everything just kind of been, what have you been doing with Overwatch?
Well, I've been playing for one. Played a bunch more like to the middle of the season, maybe little bit into the second half. Then I obviously still follow esports quite actively. I started writing for Ghost Gamers, had some interviews there, some articles. Yeah, did some work on another channel. That's about it. Like, I'm currently sort of pretty productive.
Yeah.
But it's currently then, in the 3-month scale, it's fine. Now in the 2-week scale, it's just a lot, man. And there's so much work in real life stuff, so
Yeah.
gotta get back on the horse.
So is everything that you're doing, I mean, is it all, like, I saw you started writing, and I saw that, working on some other, like, more in-depth analytical stuff on another podcast and things like that. Is that all just hobbyist stuff? Or, I mean, is Gosu, I mean, they're not, is that anything as far as, like, sponsored or anything?
No, and that's also why I haven't been releasing anything recently. I'm actually working on something that might lead into something, but
Yeah.
I can't really announce anything yet. It's not that big of a major deal. I'm also working towards, there's this takeover tournament I was at last year that's happening next week, so I'm prepping for that too. Yeah.
Sounds cool. So back on to specifically the Overwatch stuff, we've seen the anniversary update come out, and it's cool. I like it. I like all the skins. There's a ton of cool skins, and the new maps can kind of come or go for me. I mean, the arcade stuff is fun for about a night, maybe another drunken night. But like the 1v1, yeah, like the 1v1, the 3v3 stuff, it doesn't tickle my fancy too much. The skins are kind of, I love the skins, but they're just new things to look at. It's just kind of like a piece of candy. But it does always, I mean, these are one of the updates where it comes out and it just feels like this. Everything's cool. It looks awesome. Awesome. We got some new stuff. We got some new boxes to open up. And then it's just the same old, Like, I don't,
Sure.
Unless I'm completely off base, I don't think that they tweaked too many characters really at all.
Not that much, no. Some changes to Orisa, I can remember. Some changes to Genji and Hanzo.
Yeah.
Which makes him.
Yeah, Hanzo, yeah, the bow, he can pull his arrow and jump up, yeah. And now I'm remembering that one. How the biggest thing for me is coming from like the old school like MOBA mindset, like every couple months you get like a big tweak and it completely changes the landscape of the game, and you gotta scrabble back together and pick up the pieces and find out what the new thing is, and it kind of creates like the same game but new rules and things like that. I've watched a few games, but I'm not heavily, I don't follow it like people follow mainstream sports, the esports scene. Is there too much of that, or is it more so season by season?
Oh, it's probably the most diverse era we've had in a while in Overwatch. So it's basically the flavor your team has, you can actually play to your strength now. There is no overarching, best comp. There's dive, there's 2-2-2. Some even play triple support on some maps. They like Lunatic High brought out the single support for I think it was Hollywood First Point with only a Lucio. So it's like you can basically play a ton of different comps, and there's very few archetypes. It's more like people develop them as solutions to certain issues, right? It's not like tank comp and everyone plays that for a month on end. So
yeah, when I was watching a lot of the teams, at least on King of the Hill, they were running like Pharah, Tracer, Winston, Lucio, Anna, and I can't remember. Oh, Diva the sixth, and
Yeah.
that seemed like it was like they would run that comp against each other, and the only time that they would switch is maybe they would pick up like a soldier to deal with the Pharaoh if the Pharaoh was doing extremely well or something.
Yeah, it very much depends on the type of teams. Obviously, I'm mostly referring to what's being played in Korea, and then also what the two Western teams do, and is in general what the Korean teams play. I haven't kept up too closely with the North American tournaments right now, even though I imagine that it's sort of
I
a
think
similar story.
I think that was actually a Korean tournament.
Yeah, the Korean tournament is currently going on. It's Epic Season 3, and the one European team, or I guess you could call them also American because they're Orcs American, that they went out in groups now,
Hmm.
but they had an incredibly hard group, and they had the winner of last year in the group, and then the very strong reassembled team that also almost rivaled Lunatic High. So I don't know. I wouldn't oversell that too much, but they looked like the fashion in which they lost was was actually pretty much a stomp. So that was sort of disheartening if you're a fan of Western Overwatch.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, this you still have to keep in mind this is a Korean tournament with a Korean tournament format. So we don't know what happens if Koreans come over here and play uh, NA style tournaments, for instance, right?
Have you seen anything like that to where it's I mean the biggest tournament what that we've actually meshed the different regions together?
Who the so the weekend style tournaments we have in the West, right? The last one that actually had Koreans in that sense and wasn't just an online event was, I believe, IEM Gyeonggi, and that was last year. So that's a while ago, right?
Hmm.
We haven't had these tournaments, and I think it's also sort of enforced by Blizzard that you don't want them overly because they're not giving out tournament licenses at the moment,
Yeah.
and that's why they're right. Yeah, but overall, it's quite in an enjoyable state at the moment.
Okay. I mean, how do you see things like the anniversary event? I mean, because your main focus is mostly on like the competitive scene and things like that. Is the anniversary event just kind of in the back of your head, I guess?
I mean, first off, it's like, wow, we have been doing this for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah.
If you think about it, like when did we do it? I think 2015 November maybe
Yeah.
or something, right? So yeah, that has been. As I get older, I perceive time differently, right? And I'm like, wow, that has been a long time that this game has been going, and um, yeah, a year is actually. If I look back, I think the game also very much improved in many aspects that we feared it would, and I think like what we've heard from developers, it's only going to get better. So at the moment, I'm quite enthusiastic, and at the same time, if I'm looking at the anniversary end, I think it's worthwhile thing to celebrate. Right,
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. It's actually quite fun. I like a lot of the skins, and
The
I'm a
skins.
little bit. I'm a little bit disappointed that we didn't get a new hero with
Mhm.
it. Did you think before that we would get like a sneak peek on Doomfist or something?
I thought back when Orisa was coming out that we were gonna get Doomfist, or I think people were talking about like we might even get two heroes in one. Like they would release someone that was like an evil villain that was in Nabani, and then Orisa was like the superhero to combat, and so we'd get a release of both. But I think the Doomfist thing it just garnered so much hype, and Blizzard had no intention of ever releasing him that soon. It was just the community that was just like, he has to be next. Like that's the one. But Blizzard's
Yeah.
like, "Well, you can think that all you want, but that's not what's gonna happen." Even now, they actually said that they have the next hero already in like a month ago was already in art development. So he or she is gonna be coming out at the beginning of June or middle of June.
Is it not strange to you that like all the other characters had such convoluted tips and everything, and it's like to find out who Sombra is, we had to go like through the most ridiculous tasks, and then for the supposedly next character, we think next character, it's like Terry Crews just said he's Doomfist, so yeah, we got that in the back. That's outed. No long, hide and seek. It's just here you have it, and then nobody's going to really be surprised when he's eventually announced. I, I mean, it's possible that it's just a, you know, long haul tease, and it's not actually the next one, because they wanted to build him up because he's basically the big villain, right?
Yeah. I
And
mean, they can't do that. I think I mentioned that before. Was they can't just be like, all right, here's Doomfist, because then what? That's like
Yep.
that's like putting Arthas out in the first World of Warcraft game.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
like,
but they're pretty good at creating new villains then, right? If you
yeah,
look at through the history of Warcraft, there's like Arthas, and then Arthas does some stuff, then eventually you think like in Wrath of the Lich King, okay, so this is the pinnacle of, villainy, and then there's like Deathwing, and then Deathwing gets resurrected, and it's like triple duple Deathwing, and I don't know, it's strange. I think in that way it's sort of is almost like such a power level anime if you want,
yeah.
right? Like a Dragon Ball Z that constantly keeps upping the bar, and I don't think that it's particularly a problem that Doomfist would be released. I just think they need to open the story up to more evil, I guess. So his story is not just, the end, but the actual beginning of what the motives are behind the heroes, and how they, what the actual conflict is like.
Yeah. I don't. The one thing that still bothers me though is that it's this. It could be just a personal thing, but I've seen a couple people else talk about it. But it's like I've said this before. I still feel like they need to release heroes faster. I don't think that one every like 4 months is good enough.
Yeah,
It,
they
I don't
didn't
know.
they say three a year? So
Yeah,
that's even less, right? So, no, that's actually
I
exactly
think
what it
that's
is.
exactly yeah.
great, great math again, Yiska. I'm on a roll here. No, but yeah, it's a problem. Also, the amount of maps, right?
Hmm.
It's also limited, sort of, to three. I think they said.
Because
So
I think the newest thing was Orisa, and that was March. I think so. I think it was sometime in March, and it just it's been 2 months now, and it's kind of like, okay, we're getting to that point. We're getting to that point of like, where's the next piece of candy?
yeah,
Because, and I mean, the season ending, people are gonna either take a break for a week and then come back. I know
mm,
I've been playing a lot of like PlayerUnknown's Battleground after I grinded for a couple weeks to get up to plat, and I just it's this weird sense of like, what's the next thing to keep interest
yeah,
going, because you can watch competitive and you can do that and keep yourself interested to like watch the game, because those things are always developing and there's people that are like doing crazy things, but it's what keeps you playing, like what keeps you going in the
yeah,
game. I mean, some people are like, oh, I'm gonna get all the skins, I'm gonna collect that stuff, but as much as I love skins, it's all just BS in the background.
yeah. I wonder if Overwatch contenders could be that, right? So if it's like you don't know, an appeal. I guess it's only for master players and upwards, but
Yeah.
maybe the streams will be entertaining for that. Maybe they have an engaging way to, incorporate it in the AI, in the UI, in the actual game or something. Maybe that, but I get what you mean from a storytelling perspective, and like from a novelty value perspective, right? From a gameplay perspective, I have to say I almost have the feeling that the meta is still just recently has discovered Sombra. It's
Yeah.
actually ridiculous. Like, people actually just started making Sombra work for some reason, right? So, and we don't see her now. We see her a decent amount. I think I haven't looked at the recent meta reports, but it should be sort of like between 5 and 10% at least. Pro- like probably much more on certain maps,
Mm-hmm.
and actually also very good displays of Sombra. But Orisa, for instance, is basically only played on exactly one map, and that exact one map is a sub map of Lijiang Tower, right? So,
Really?
like,
I thought is the whole like Orisa with Torbjorn turret on Hollywood Defense only? Is that not a thing anymore?
it's not like a standard thing. Like this stuff sometimes happens.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I forget. I think it was Selfless. They recently had a Protect the Parrot President comp, which is basically the comp they, describe when they put a bastion on the payload and just push it with like ridiculous amounts of shields and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And even that you would think is probably fairly easy to break with a Sombra. But yeah, it's still not. Orisa is really not that firmly into the meta, and I wonder if the changes to her shield can now give her that in
That boost.
further boost. Yeah, because now she's actually her shields are an actual obstacle now, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, how do you feel coming from how many heroes did Bloodline Champions have? Like
That's a
50?
good question. Nah, not that many. I
Okay.
think it had about as many as Overwatch, but there was a time they just hammered them out too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it felt like every 2 weeks there was a new hero or something.
Yeah, because
Um,
I'm just comparing it to. I was actually talking to my brother about this. I was comparing it to Heroes of the Storm, which is, I get it, it's
yep.
completely different. Like, there's so many characters that they can choose from, and all they do is just put in some art and code for like a month or two in the background while they're releasing more heroes, so they
Hmm.
have that like ability to pull from everywhere. But it's the same thing that happened in League of Legends. It's the same thing that happened at least Dota 2 beta, where it's like this. At least every month, you're getting a new character. It swaps things around. And I think when we had half on, we talked about this. You don't see a problem with having like Rhine every game, Lucio every game.
Not generally, yeah.
Not
It's fun. I mean, the thing is, here's the difference, right?
yeah,
The character or a hero in Overwatch has a lot more work going into it than these comparable games.
yeah.
So, for instance, like just think of how they typecast or how they cast the voice actors. So these voice actors not only have to have a decent voice, they apparently also need to be heavily attractive and also engaging with others, like fun
It's
personalities,
almost
so
like
they
they
can be.
contract these people to just like you're not like it's like a movie star. Like you're now an Overwatch person. You'll go to
Yes.
conventions and you're a star now. That's so weird.
Yeah, and they're building them up sort of like a you don't so let's say you don't want Mercy to be turn out to be a shitty person, I guess, and get bad press, right?
Yeah.
They put them in the spotlight and they want them to be sort of, I would even say, idols in a sense, right? And that's also very clear to me where they also try to advertise to. Like there's so many videos of like 6-year-old children going like heroes never die, daddy, daddy, heroes never die, right? And that's simply very different. They're trying to create like an alive universe, while in League of Legends, yeah, you had some of that flavor, and I mean, for instance, I always enjoyed these whimsical characters, and I enjoyed the flavor of them, but they're still sort of like two-dimensional,
Oh yeah.
dimensional in comparison to the Overwatch heroes.
Hmm. It's just that idea of I guess maybe I don't know how to express it completely, or maybe I'm just wrong. But it's that idea of like I get it, I get the game. I might not be able to like perform the game at a top level, but I get what the objective is. I get some of the other players and things like that. But it's this idea of like okay, give me some more pieces to play with. Like give me some more like so I can go okay. Well, what if you set up the team like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then but you pull in this guy and pull in this guy, and that's where like the item customization and like different characters and like banning and picking characters and things like that comes from MOBAs. Is that there's like there's so many tools to. Not that it's always a good thing because it's a little bit overwhelming when you have like 100 characters to pick from.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just my mindset of like if we had even more maps, because I think Here's the Storm also how they have like different map types and things like that. They add like a new map and it kind of shakes up the game because if it gets thrown in the rotation, then you need to learn how to play it.
Yeah.
And I've heard some other people say too that like are they stable? Do you think that Overwatch is stable where it's at so they're, you know, cruising along at a steady pace? Or do you think that they're, afraid to like try new things or like throw a wrench into everything? And it could also possibly be that it was the first year and they want to take it slow.
I think like they even if they have the capacity to release more heroes, they still wouldn't do it. Simply because if you think about if you get too much from, let's put out a ridiculous number. So every 2 weeks, so like 20 heroes a year, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to, even if you were able to have characters of the same quality that Overwatch currently has, players will still probably not connect as much to them. It wouldn't feel as special when these characters came out.
Yep.
Now you almost want like, either a comic strip with them, or you want, like an animated video that explains their story, right? There's so much production behind it that increases the value, and it feels. I think they feel that it would dilute the product if they were to, do anything different.
Yeah,
And that's why.
I think I agree. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. The idea of them releasing new characters and they have to like build this whole world around like one character and how they fit into the universe and things like that.
Yeah. I think what they need to do is characters is one thing, right? But for instance, did you like the what was the game mode? The new one that was then taken out. What was it called? When you had to defend the payload, and then they had like a global
like the PVE, the Ascension or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they had more like stuff like this, would you be on board with that then? Would you?
I don't know, because that's all like the BS, like Dominion and like ARAM. That's all that BS like League had, where it's like, okay, here's the main game, and we'll give you some It's like arcade. It's like the 3v3 1v1 stuff. Like that's cool. I'll play it every once in a while with some friends or something like that. But it's just you go into a competitive game and you play with the same characters over and over and over and over and over. And it's just, I mean, I guess now that I think about that, fighting games do the same thing. So I don't know where the disconnect is there for me. But it just feels like they could add a lot more maps or something.
Mm-hmm. More map types too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Something weird, something crazy. Because it just, I mean, how many maps have we gotten? We got Oasis. The last one before that was Eichenwald.
Yep.
And then before that was Ilios.
Yeah. So I think that's about 3 in a year, right?
Yeah.
Since release.
But I mean, if this is your main game and you play it every single day, and you're playing the same maps over and over and over and over and over, other than winning, obviously, is a good thing to get. It's just this. I don't know. It's this idea of staleness.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad. It's not like I hate the game. It's just. It's that like, where's the fresh coat of paint?
Yep, I understand. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, I guess new heroes help.
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, like what we've been preaching for a long time is like look at the other stuff that was really fun in your other games. For instance, have tournament modes or something like
That
built
that
into the client.
that is completely, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at it for what they have been putting into the game so far. What could they do to improve? Because skins and shit like that, it doesn't matter. That's
Yeah.
just, I mean, that's just sprinkled stuff around it. But um,
Have you seen that they want to look at competitive 3v3?
no.
Yeah, Jeff said that they are looking at it, and if it's like popular enough, they might. But that ultimately like will probably end up being very unbalanced, or rather not optimized for, and then
Yeah,
it,
it's
you know,
just
it's a stepchild, and then
dies off
it
later on.
gets
Like,
yeah, like Dominion basically.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me. Now that we're on already I don't want to call it complaint train because I'm not complaining. I'm just thinking out loud. What are some things that you think that maybe Jeff? I won't say Jeff. What do you think that the Overwatch team has promised or not? I'm correcting myself. What are we missing? What have they said that they were gonna do that we're still waiting on? Things like spectator mode. I mean, something like spectator mode for someone who watches so much competitive, unless I know one tournament was working on some type of overlay to make it like more viewable, I guess. But do you
Mhm.
think now that, I mean, that you watch so much competitive, is a spectator client bother you still, or is it just kind of something you've accepted?
Both, I would say, but it very much depends on who's observing most of the time.
Yeah.
So there's absolute, honestly, shit shows of observing, and that's fine. Like people need to learn still, right? And then there's pretty solid observing, and then there's discussions of philosophy. It's a first-person shooter, so you always have to be first person against. Okay, go third person, so you get the macro impression. That's all fine and dandy, and I think you could bridge that with better UI. The thing is, I think they will wrap it up around nicely in like a replay system as well as observer UI system where it gets all much more accessible. Maybe you have a rewind feature in the observer kit or something, so you could jump back and get the important footage for instance, something like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely what we're currently weighing on, right? And then obviously, as we said, heroes. What else is there? Well, certainly tournaments, right? Or the announcement of the Overwatch League.
Yeah, that too. The Overwatch League. I mean, they haven't released any other crazy information besides a little while ago they had like a $20 million buy-in for teams.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I love Overwatch. I don't know why they are trying to value this game so highly.
Well, it depends. Like what they're it's not also so it sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Depending on the type of contract though, it could sound reasonable. So for instance, if you buy into the Overwatch League, you get a guaranteed 10-year league. So Activision Blizzard guarantees you that this league runs for 10 years and they will support it, and even if the exposure isn't as big, so they are also tied into it financially.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then obviously rev share and everything. That's still very possible that it ends up, because there's also no relegation. If your brand is in there, then it's in there, right?
Yeah.
So it's not hard to conceive of a situation where that's a reasonable amount of money to ask for, in obviously only in the very highly frequented cities like in LA or something, right? Not like, I don't know. They're also thinking about European cities. I don't know if my city was to get one, it certainly wouldn't hit 20 million, right?
I mean, I don't know where they're going with all this stuff. At least it doesn't seem like they're probably releasing information and it's probably out there and things like that, but it just doesn't seem like they're being as like Crusher 99 about it as they were like this like super mainstream advertisements and like this is what we're doing and these are the cities that we're going to. They released all of that information like last fall or something, last
Yeah.
like end of the summer, and we're wrapping up almost on like a no, actually I think it was at the end of the year last year.
Mm-hmm.
So probably about like 6 months later. But
That's gone right.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just like where's all this information at?
Yep. And that's basically also every endemic gaming organization saying, okay, we got these teams here and we pay them contracts, and you're not even handing out tournament licenses, whereas, we're not getting any ROI,
Mm-hmm.
return of investment. So it's a ridiculous situation at the moment, and I hope like it gets increasingly hard for me to conceive of a situation where holding back that information was worth it. Now, obviously, with the introduction of Overwatch Contenders, that sort of fixed the wounds in a way. But
So I did look into the contenders, but it was actually right around the team, or right around the time that another team disbanded. So I didn't look into it too heavily. What is the quick rundown of contenders?
Overwatch Contenders is basically, if you're familiar with League of Legends, it's basically like a challengers type of series. So this is the not quite professional teams,
Mm-hmm.
and they're set up in a league sort of league format system where you have group play, or let's say it starts out with like a huge bracket, like basically unlimited amount of teams, and then it goes for several weeks, and that's why I'm saying league, not like it's probably not an accurate description. It's rather that it's running for a very long time. So you need preparation skills instead of just banging it out on one weekend and you're in.
Yeah.
So they have prize money, and it is like they invited some pro teams into it, and those have been seeded for seasons 2. Season 0 is basically open qualifiers. Season 1 is then the actual tournament. And I think what it will lead up to is that it's sort of like a feeder league. So the big Overwatch league teams will then look at this talent, and maybe we determine, players for the combine based on the performances in these exhibition sort of events, right?
Yeah.
They also applied most of their tournament rule sets to that, so teams can be as big as 8 people instead of 6, right? So that's quite an interesting thing.
So is it teams or is it pub stars? Like is it
Both.
okay?
So you have basically everyone that's masters can participate, and that's the only way this 75K figure that Bobby Kotick talked about makes any sense whatsoever, right? Even though, like, let's be real, I've seen admittedly the lower end of masters. These people are so far away from being professional, it's actually ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a fun thing because I guess a lot of people could participate in it and build sort of like the hype around it, and seeing who can emerge from there, which young talent, for instance, or unknown talent, and gets out from there, and also breaking up this sort of old boys club feel, right? So that pro teams can have, because honestly, pro teams are just as much politics as every other sports is politics,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And yeah, I think that I was pleasantly surprised by that. But at the same time, you have to think, and I think another person raised this point. He's called Sideshow, and he basically said it's quite possible that we, at least in the first season, have the situation where the Overwatch that is being played in Overwatch Contenders is higher quality than in the Overwatch League, depending on contract situations, all this stuff, how quickly they can react to these changes, and how ruthless the selection process is, right? So, in a sense, like, the value of Overwatch Contenders is pretty apparent to me, and I think people should be hyped for it, also because it's sort of like the regions that are being in, like, that are competing are pretty big. At the same time, I wonder how they do it with the latency issues.
Yeah.
Right. So.
So this is something I was thinking about while we're, telling Blizzard what they should add to their game. Do you think that people like myself and some of the other people like complaining and stuff, or even Blizzard not releasing information, do you think that maybe we're being a bit impatient, or do you think that it is kind of on Blizzard's shoulders that they're holding back a bit too much?
So both. So for the first thing, I would say the impatience with content and saying like, yeah, well, I'm playing this game a load, and that's why it gets boring. I was a hardcore WoW player, right? And that was basically all we ever said, right? Like,
Yeah.
bring us new stuff. It's getting boring. Please change blah. Like, I sort of get it, but at the same time, how much can you really expect from your money? I guess, right? And
I
like,
am way past that, man. I have drilled my money away into pennies upon pennies of hours. Like that's
yeah,
money's not my concern. But I
ex-
now that you bring up the WoW thing, it does make sense where it's like it's really not Blizzard's responsibility to I'm sorry that you play this game, like a full-time
yeah,
job.
yep,
It's
yeah, exactly.
like if you get bored, you're okay, man. You can go like I myself, like I said, go play Battlegrounds or go play, some other game or you know
Even
get a
another Blizzard
life.
game.
Like
Yeah. You can even get Overwatch skins in Heart of the Storm now. So play that instead, right? It's
that was horrible. I played the like just to get the Diva skin and things like that.
mhm.
And Heroes of the Storm people are just like ruthless. It's just like they know Overwatch people are coming into their game just for the skin and bitching up a storm. They're like, "Oh my god, all these Overwatch people, they don't know how to play the game."
That's why I almost always full lobby or at least with like three friends, right?
Yeah.
So it isn't as annoying, but in general, I enjoy the game currently quite a lot. Must say, I'm currently playing it more than Overwatch.
Here's the storm,
Um,
really?
yeah, yeah, it's actually I used to be sort of okay during beta and then later, and now well, obviously I didn't keep up with all the strategies, and this game really with 2.0 was changed a lot. And like I got into the game, and just imagine someone that played a game and comes in, and there's like twice as many heroes now.
Yeah.
I'm
When
not exaggerating. It's twice as many,
That's what I'm
right?
talking about is that Blizzard for Here's the Storm, it's like a new hero every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Um and I'm the same way. I mean, coming from like League and Dota, and you come play Here's the Storm, it's like you walk in the room and there's a bunch of kids like playing with boppets. Do you know what a boppet is?
No?
You
What's
know
that?
those. Oh, hold on, we need to have a break for a second. It's like a It's okay. I'm gonna use this Mountain Dew bottle. Um,
Okay.
it's like it was this shape. It was from the '90s, and it had like a big bubble in the middle, or like towards the bottom, like 75%. And you hit the bop it, and then it would start like playing like a beat, and you could either pull the top up, like like a slide flute, and then if you let go, it would come back down. You
Okay.
could bop the button, or you could like there's a crank on the bottom you could twist,
Okay.
and they each were like technically just like a button input. It was either 1, 2, or 3, and it would tell you what button to push, like Simon says. And
Ah, okay.
anyways, um, it yeah, I don't know. When I played Heroes of the Storm, it was just like Mario Kart compared to Dota and League. It was just like
Sure.
everything was
Sure.
just like team fights, and there's no last
Yeah.
hitting, no gold, no items. But
Yeah.
now that I've gotten back into it, like after taking a break, it's my brother's main game. That's what he plays is Heroes of the Storm religiously, and
Hmm.
it's okay.
I think, like, in order to enjoy it, in a sense, if you're, for instance, an FPS purist, right,
Yeah.
you also really needed to overcome that archetype you had in your head of what an FPS is like to enjoy Overwatch. And then, because Blizzard doesn't care about these histories, they're not trying to make, like, an FPS that is better than every other FPS in that genre. They actually changed the rule set by which you know, acquire wins, right? The win conditions are completely different, and in the same sense, that's also true for Heroes of the Storm, where they simply have It's not about items. It's about how do you handle all these different game types and everything.
Yeah.
And then we got a bunch of heroes and blah blah blah. That's a different win conditions then. And in the same sense, that's also true for Overwatch. Like it's not as much on the individual player, and you can think about that what you like, but and it's also a lot about ultimates, right? It's not strictly about clicking heads really
Yeah,
fast.
no.
If you
There's
want that, then go play Counter Strike, right?
And I think we talked about this back, like way back in the beginning of the show with Vulture, was that Vulture's coming from like a very FPS, you shoot somebody, they die.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you have a different weapon to shoot them with. Where Overwatch is still this like very much a MOBA
Yep.
with shooting elements. I think it's more so a shooting game with MOBA elements, but it's it's a nice flavor of both, and I like the flavor. But Blizzard, give me some more goddamn heroes. That's about it. How do you think that they could handle the tournament modes? Do you think that it would have to be a you just get thrown in with random people, or you would have to queue as six?
I mean, if they want to promote sort of like this grassroots movement type of team environment, that if you think about your favorite sport in real life, most likely a ton of amateurs are playing it in a team scenario. So, for instance, if I relate this to this European soccer sort of structure, you have obviously kids that just kick balls back and forth, don't really adhere to the rules and everything. But there's a lot of organized play where like adults and teenagers meet up twice a week, practice, then also meet up on Saturday because there's a game against another team, and it's all organized in like local clubs. And if you want to sort of grow this, I think you would have to do the six-man stuff. At the same time, it's very hard to get six people
Yes, it is.
together nowadays.
I don't know, because it's that idea of, oh, I have Saturday off. I'll, spend 3 hours sitting on the computer, and I'll go join a tournament game. Just join the queue or whatever. Maybe it's a 10-minute queue because it's a huge getting everything together. Go make a cup of coffee, come back, sit down, and you get thrown into a game with six other people. Everyone readies up. You're in a party, and then it says, your game begins in X number of minutes, and then you get to know the people a little bit, and maybe get a chance to bow out if somebody's an asshole,
Yeah.
and you play that game. And at the same time, everyone else is playing. Let's say that there's 8 teams, and everyone else is playing their matches, and you don't have to make it double elimination. It would take too fucking long. And you go up, and then you win. Maybe the next set of people are not done yet, and it's like, okay, other people are finishing their game. You have another 10-minute break. Okay, cool. You get up, or you talk to the people maybe still, and then if you win the tournament, you get a tournament point and maybe some loot boxes, and then you send them on their way. And after so many tournament points, you can buy a tournament skin.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly. That's exactly how I imagine it. And the only issue I see is like with people smurfing, especially now that the game is getting less expensive. You can basically get it for 20 quid now. What does it really? It's not even that just like pro player smurfing. It's also like boosting services like that just legitimately ruin your fun. Like you get a service to play, let's say, even if you grade them, so like you have silver level tournaments. Okay, so a booster logs into your account and then plays silver level tournaments, obviously outskills everyone, and then maybe in the final stages it gets ridiculous when it's a silver level tournament, but in reality it's all grandmasters playing because everyone's like just
boosters versus boosters.
exactly, yeah.
But I
So
mean,
I don't know
what
how
can
you
you
could.
do about that though?
Yeah, yeah. But that would be a huge outrage, and that's basically, that's why we can't have nice things scenario, I think.
I think I'm on the mindset where it's like the same thing where people are like, you have to do something about all these leavers and quitters and ragers, and it's like, technically, if it was a problem, Blizzard would deal with it. but my bet is it's 1 in 10 games. So shit happens, man. That's about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Possible. I mean, yeah, it's probably worth it just to do it, and if it's like implemented in the actual in-game client, I don't know. I think it might grow something, right? And people might be much more readily willing to participate in these things. At the same time, it's a strange dynamic. So if you think about it, like if you did sports, for instance, in school or like in a club when you like were younger or something, there was conflict, I guess, but
Yeah.
like how often did you actually see like a kid walk off practice because he was like pissed how everyone else was playing? That doesn't really happen in real life because there's like a social pressure and like a because it's in real life the consequences feel differently. Now,
Yeah.
even if I play with real life friends, the dynamic could be different where they're like, oh, I don't really feel like playing like any more of these tournaments or six man, or I don't want to be up at this time. Even though in usual sports that's apparently no issue, right? This happens all over the world. So it's sort of like the mindset these two types of scenarios summon is very different. And if they can somehow bridge this gap and make it like a regular occurrence with like a big fat carrot on the stick
Hmm.
that that keeps people going, then I don't know. I think it could be nice.
I mean, the only thing that you could think of though is a tournament skin, right? Like a
Yes.
tournament skin for each character, just like a golden gun, you know, and it's I don't know. It just says, like Overwatch tournament on it or whatever, and you have to get like 30 tournament wins.
Yeah. The thing is, Jeff already said that he disliked that they gave out stuff for competitive.
Why?
Um, yeah, I don't understand that whatsoever. Like that was actually the best part about WoW Arena, for instance. Like having that gladiator title, like the name, and then obviously the prestige of having the rank one title, and like the mount, the special one, especially the mount, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's like AFKing in Ironforge, and then whenever someone's running around, it's like, oh wow, that dude has gladiator, and there were actually not that many on most realms, right?
Oh yeah.
So it was like a sort of like a status symbol, much like the PvE stuff is, right? So like the newest set or something, you could
Yeah,
say,
not
wow, that
anymore,
looks
but yeah, but it's like I remember old school League, when somebody would have like Dr. Shen or Surgeon Shen or some of the old school skins for League of Legends. And it was just like, holy shit, dude. You've been playing for
yep.
a long time. That's sweet. You're probably good. Let's get rolling. And I like that Overwatch does that. I really do like that it's like the summer games, you can't get them anymore. If you didn't play during then, sorry.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, I guess the summer games is the wrong one to pick because I was like you couldn't actually buy
They're
the
really good.
skins. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. And I hope that they don't ever do this like it's Overwatch's like 5th anniversary. You can buy previous skins. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. I don't know. They did devalue the thing then. Even though I agree that it kind of sucks for people that got later into the game, but come on, it's not just like,
It's a skin.
you know,
It doesn't. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. So now that we're done, I guess bitching about things that are missing, what what's your goal for the next year of Overwatch? What is your not personal goal, but like what would you like to see Overwatch do with the game? Because they've crossed, and I don't remember like a source for this, but I know that Jeff talked about they don't want to do crazy skins. They don't want to do any of these like way over the top things because it's even though Overwatch is growing extremely fast and beta's technically part of the history of the game's only been out for a year. It's 1 year old. You think about games like Dota and League and things like that, where Overwatch is, maybe nibbling at the toes a little bit. It's definitely not competing with League or anything, but it's getting there for 1 year.
Yeah.
And think about like the first year of League of Legends. It was just like a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
So what's year 2 look like for you?
So naturally, I would wish that they somehow get to connect the choose. It feels very split apart at the moment with the casual fan base and like the hardcores, and like both parties are to blame. There's like the elitists that go like, you're not top 500, you're pleb, and the other part where they're like, "Oh, don't take it as seriously, like it's just a video game, why do you care, you're childish, blah 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 blah," right? And these two camps, if they sort of could make a crossover and unite them and just have these interactions with people, and I don't know what would need to happen, but I guess you can make it with game design, but just that people then sort of, you know, that these groups understand each other and also can exchange in some sort of fashion,
I
right?
mean, you're always going to have that dick measuring contest of competitive games, but
Sure.
yeah, I think that I guess on the spot a system to merge competitive and casual people together really doesn't. I guess nothing rings a bell. Like because if you make them play games together, one person's gonna get mad. If you make them watch games together, maybe like in the client, some people just won't watch the games. Like if you're a casual person and you just play on your Xbox or something like that, you don't give a shit. You just come in, blast some people away as Junkrat or something, and then you go to bed.
Yeah. That's a good question, how you would do that. I mean, the PvE stuff, for one, is a good thing, I think.
I like
Because
it. I do like the PvE stuff, but what I mean, what does that add to the actual main game? Or I guess what is the main game? The real question
yeah.
is the main game just 6v6, on these separate maps, or will we have to start realizing that, when I started World of Warcraft, and we always go to other games, but whatever. When I started World of Warcraft, I was very much like PvP is an add-on. It's just for people who get bored at raiding and things like that. And I still was like all throughout WoW, maybe besides like one patch when Arena came out, it was just this PvP is an add-on. So is 3v3, 1v1, those add-ons, is PvE in Overwatch an add-on, or are they going to start expanding the game to be more than just 6v6?
Yep. That's like, if they can sort of soften these borders and, you know, sort of facilitate ways, maybe not just game design, but also like how marketing approaches it and how booths are set up at big gaming conventions, for instance. Like, wouldn't it be nice to sort of like, for instance, have like pro players interact with cosplayers or something? Like, not overly and not, like forced that it feels awkward or something, but
Yeah.
just something so, because like we're basically enjoying the same game and the borders seem so far apart. It's like we're basically doing different things, and when it doesn't necessarily need to. Like for instance, I can look at a sweet Genji cosplay and go like, dude, that's so sick, right?
Hmm.
Or I can enjoy the story of uh, Overwatch, in certain parts, or I can actually enjoy, for instance, like highlights if they're funny, genuinely funny or something, right?
Yep.
It's just you need a good mix of everything, otherwise it's so overbearing and then yeah, so competitive and so almost like perceptions of games. Like what your ultimate goal is when it really don't doesn't necessarily have to be, right?
Yeah. Do you think that getting maybe the casual people into competitive, the idea is the spectator client? Like, because if you go in right now, or even myself, like go in and watch like a pro game, I get what's going on. I get who's using ultimates. I get what they're saving for. I get swaps, and I get certain routes they're taking and why they're pushing past the point instead of going straight to the point. To actually area control things like that. But people who don't watch, or people who, just play the game on the weekends or something, and then they go, oh, hey, it's on Twitch, like there's a tournament going on, and they're just like, what are they doing?
Yep.
Like what's going on? And it's, do you think maybe casters can help out this?
Definitely. The thing is, then it's also like for the hardcore community, if they will get explained what Farah does as a character is very tiresome. Let's be real, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you need two types of casts and maybe split streams or something, so they get the chance to have like people that introduce a new audience to it. Or I mean, the spectator UI definitely needs to improve, and also maybe the type of production, how these tournaments are recorded, so you can tell a better story. And then obviously, like I myself, so as a writer, I see myself very much also responsible to create narratives that if you've never touched Overwatch, you still get what it's about, right?
Yeah.
It's still about humans competing and trying their best, basically to be the best, to compete in the competitive spirit, what it's like to overcome and certain obstacles, and that's universal in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if that like these stories resonate also in real life and can teach you valuable lessons, that's also why sports are so successful, because they are sort of like the mythical stories of our age, right? If you have like a Ronaldo or like a Tiger Woods or something. Okay, Tiger Woods might be a bad example as it eventually turned out, right? But you get the idea. Like these almost, it's not even that about the person, but the sort of surrounding aura these people inhabit. So they become like beacons of inspiration, even if it's not about the person, but what they stand for. And if that can also be something that happens in Overwatch, then I think it will naturally appeal to people, and that needs good storytellers, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that the scene could also make a better effort to sort of incorporate these people in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the hardcore people who want to just get more hardcore and more into it and more, but they don't think about the people who have no idea what the fuck's going on. But
Yeah,
they need those views. They need people to watch that too.
I guess. Yeah, well,
Because if
at
you think
least
about like StarCraft and League of Legends, they're very, very much like a spectator sport. Like if you don't know what's going on, to some degree you can still watch it because it's very visually obvious to what the hell's going on.
okay, so StarCraft, yes, probably. Like if you look at a unit, you probably get quickly what you do, but I don't know if that's too true. I guess, okay, if 5 dudes are dead, okay, that makes sense. But I think it's mostly better to understand because the pace is slower. In Overwatch, you have constant, like, high pace.
Yeah.
But I think, like, an Overwatch team fight is not harder intrinsically to understand than a League of Legends team fight. They just happen less frequently. So if you have, like, what is the pro game score, the usual one, like 8 to 9 kills or something at the end of the game, and then they push the Nexus?
Yeah.
In Overwatch, I don't know, that happens basically twice a minute, right? 8 or 9 kills. So it's very different, and the pace is very different. It needs very, very special casters that can compute and take in all this information and then select the nuggets, so to speak. And these are challenges that are very hard to overcome this quickly, this early in the scene. But I think eventually it will. And most definitely the Observer client needs to help with this too.
Okay. I think that's about all that we can expect, other than new characters, hopefully new maps, the spectator and client improving, Overwatch League, the Contender Series. But the only bad thing is that other than the Contender Series and kind of the Overwatch League, these are the three things we've been waiting for: is
Yep.
more heroes, more maps, and spectator client.
I'm also waiting for an animated short, not gonna lie. I want some of them.
Yeah, for what? Who has one? Sombra has one. Bastion has one. The Shimada brothers, Tracer, Widow, Winston. So
That's it. Yeah.
May needs one. Yeah,
A
May
ton
needs
of
one.
characters. For instance, uh, I guess what would be an interesting case? McCree would probably be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, what else would be very interesting? Obviously, Anna, probably. Anna Farah thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we haven't
Yep.
seen Farah in one.
Yep. Maybe a little bit more about Reaper in general.
Yeah.
Like Reaper is a strange case. He's like a mythical creature in a world of technology, right?
I
He can
think
do stuff that others don't.
they should do Black Watch.
Black Watch.
Yeah, Black Watch is no, not oh my god, no. Black Watch is Reaper, McCree, and Genji.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
So,
I mean that would be cool. I'm trying to think of anything else though, because it's kind of like, what else do they have to add that we don't think that we want, but they know that we want? Tournament modes, other game modes. I'm still waiting for a different game type though, and I'm waiting for them to invent that, because they've what, 3 technically and a half if you count hybrid as a different game mode.
no. I mean, some people are waiting for a map rotation, I guess.
Like a ranked season, like these are the 6 maps or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they that's the most egregious stuff about the Overwatch contenders. They did that. They got rid of I think it's 4 maps, so it's only 10 at the moment. You know which ones they got? They got King's Row out of there. Like the most
Why?
beloved map. Yeah, I made the case that it also took Ilios, so that's fine, right? So if you need to sacrifice one godlike map for a shitty map, that's probably good. But yeah, it's strange. I don't know how they make these prioritizations. And the other 2 maps, I forgot which one they were, but they were also crowd or rather team favorites. Maybe there's a good reason for that, but I don't know. I would really hate rated if I never got to play King's Row again. Like if I get King's Row in ranked, I'm like, fuck yeah, great map, right? I always look forward to these, and I get quite bored of King of the Hill at the moment, which is strange, but the map game modes just plays very differently than the others.
Yeah. I actually
So-
like King of the Hill a lot, because you tend to get those games where it's either you get like a back and forth of, okay, I lost, but it's cool. We still got a couple more rounds. Whereas in something like Payload, if they just like push your first 2 points in a minute, that's like, okay, well, we just totally got fucked. Like we don't have technically a second chance. We could try, but they just steamrolled us.
Yeah, I mean, you could think of the payload maps differently, and like every point is like a map, so to speak, on King of the Hill.
Yeah.
The issue I see with King of the Hill is like best of 5 is way too long, man.
Yeah, that's true.
Jesus, like these games can drag on for like 40, 50 minutes or something if you're very unlucky. Like you get a ton of overtimes, and then 99% to 99% on all 5 maps. And then it's also it like, do you know this feeling of like, okay, you play one map, the opponent plays one map, it's 1-1, then you play another map, it's 2-1, and then the opponent gets exactly the map that they won against you, and that can almost flip. Like that there's reoccurring maps I hate, basically because it feels so unfair in a sense, because it's so RNG. It's not predetermined which maps come up again.
Yeah.
And it feels way too long. Like if you look at statistics and in competitive play, a best of 3 King of the Hill takes as long as a payload map. So why have best of 5? Makes no sense.
I don't know. Maybe they want it to be because you get 2 sides to a payload map. Like,
Sure. Even then, right? It's still like both sides of a playable map is still as long as three sides, or on average. Like for instance, in quick play, they do have best of three,
Yeah.
and the Korean tournament also does only best of three. It's just
Really?
really, yep. It's only like ranked and um American tournaments that does it.
Do
And
European tournaments do best of 3? Or yeah, best of 3?
well, there haven't been that many. I think does Takeover take? No, I think Takeover also has best of five,
Okay.
which is so you play 50 minutes for one map point,
Yeah.
and then the other team rolls you on like 2 CP or something, and that can be over in under 10 minutes, and they both value for one, right?
Yeah.
It's that's always like I already hated it in like StarCraft when someone like won a very elaborate macro game and it took like a ridiculous amount of time and a ridiculous amount of decisions upon decisions to crystallize who's the better player. Next game, other guy cheeses, baneling all in or something,
Yeah.
right? And these count for the same thing. I mean, I get it. That's the goal of the game. It still doesn't feel right to me.
No.
So, yeah.
Alrighty. We don't need to go for too much longer. But I did want to kind of wrap up and talk about what's going on with what's coming up. So as of right now, the Contender Series is something to pay attention to. Do we have any other? Let me look to see if there's any other. What I mean, are you generally paying attention to all tournaments, larger tournaments? I mean, what do you kind of take a look at, or just what's on?
Okay, so I watched the top tier NA tournaments. I watched most of the qualifiers. I haven't caught up recently on the NA tournaments. For instance, I'll need to watch a bunch of VODs of the recent Rivalcade Overwatch Rumble. It's like an anniversary event too. That's happening right now on the weekend. The finals are today, if I'm not mistaken. Then next week is Takeover. That's a 4-day tournament in Krefeld, so I'm going to be there. There is, I guess there's a tournament in Europe at the end of the month that hasn't been released yet. Then obviously Overwatch Contenders starts on the same day as Takeover, which is kind of feels bad, man, but yeah. Yeah, that's about it for now. There haven't been any other released, dates. But I guess we have these three things in terms of competitive Overwatch to look forward to. And then obviously like the Overwatch monthly melee came to an end. So that's also, I don't know. Like I really like that series, and now that it's gone, you sort of realize what's missing. So
yeah, like a smaller. So I think really the one that I'm going to pay attention to is actually the Takeover 2. It's really weird to watch these tournaments that take. I mean, I know Takeover has been doing their qualifiers for about a month, but it's really weird to watch some of these Asian tournaments where it's like they've been going on since it's April 8th. Like the Pacific Championship has been going on from April 8th and it ends in July. So it's like these like 2-month long tournaments.
Yeah. The APEC I don't follow at all. I follow Apex very heavily. So that's my bread and butter right now. So there's, the Chinese tournament, and then there's Apex, which is at South Korea, and it has like I think it's 14 Korean teams and 2 Western teams, one of which being Envious and one is Rogue. Rogue's out. Envious is pretty much qualified, and they're looking sharp as hell. There are a bunch of teams from the Western region currently practicing in South Korea, so that's exciting. And we'll see a bunch of them at Takeover 2. So that's certainly a development that I'm interested in, how these teams, shaped up. Mm-hmm. And then, like in general, Apex right now, like the production quality, the problem for NA viewers is it's a ridiculous time, right? So if you're like, I think if you're on the, don't let me lie, if you're on the East Coast, it basically starts at 6 a.m. or something.
Jesus Christ.
So that's a feels Batman too, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, some fanatics I surround myself with actually stand up during that time, and for me, it's mostly during my work hours. So I, try to sneak in a little bit of, the good old
On the
cell phone.
phone. Yeah.
If it's a really exciting match, most of the time I catch up on bots, but simply because it's not feasible to do it at work. But
Mhm.
I don't know, like Apex production quality, observers. Okay, Monty and Joa are gone now, but the casters they got instead are quite enjoyable, even though they are still developing.
Mhm.
And in general, Apex is still the best type of Overwatch product in terms of esports that you're going to get, and probably for a long time.
Oh God. Um. Okay. So we can go ahead and wrap up. Do you have anything that people should be paying attention to on your end?
Well, I started this interview series called The Essence of Heroes, and it's basically an interview series with pro players that are very known for that one trick style. And if you don't have one tricks, then I get at least some well-known people for it. So recently I've had Reinforced talk about Reinhardt, and I always try to sort of reveal what's behind their career, what kind of person is there, and how that lends itself to how they're playing, so how that style sort of happens, right? So I got a great interviewee now for the next one, so that I'm hyped for that. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
conducted it yet, but it will soon.
Okay. On my end, at least for this, I've been kind of trying to rework the channel. This Watchpoint exactly. Ever since Vulture departed, I've kind of been wondering what exactly I want to do with it. I have been putting up some other things like an in-house league that I started for pretty much anybody. Anybody who's watching can go ahead and just join in on the Lions Den Discord, and it's just like a backyard style pick captains, pick from a pool of players, best out of 3. Just trying to get some people more so into competitive. That's not competitive with random people you can learn from, people you can grow and get better. There's everyone from silver up to GM that play. And I'm putting up VODs of that. I did the overlays. After actually this podcast right now goes up, I'm redoing all the overlays. I already have everything made, but I didn't want to put anything up until the podcast was recorded. And I'm trying to think of some other stuff that we can add to the channel. If there's something that you guys want to see, if there's an idea, other than some of the stuff that other people do, all like the short 10-minute videos that people do, like Force and what's his name? I can't remember his name now. I don't want to call him out, but all the people that do like the 10-minute videos every day that reiterate the same BS that everyone already knows, that type of stuff bothers me. And I want to try to get something new out there, something you guys think is missing. So if it's missing, let me know, and I'll try to create it, either grab some people to help out and make something good. But I do want to evolve. I want to keep the podcast where it's at, keep, it just hanging out. Definitely not going to be doing every week, because if you guys watch the podcast every week, you notice sometimes we kind of ran into a wall of repeating the same stuff. So trying to back off from doing too much of it. But we're changing. We're evolving. Anything else you think we should bring up?
Nothing pops to mind, no.
Cool. Thank you guys for watching this week. Probably going to see you in 2 weeks or so. Pay attention to the Twitter. Pay attention to the Twitch. And hit the subscribe button on YouTube to see when the next time we make a podcast or any other of our content. Everyone have a good night. Goodbye.
Sweet.